Claire Whitmore had always believed in the power of trust. Married for over 16 years to Thomas, a charming high school literature teacher with a dry sense of humor and a penchant for misplacing his glasses, Claire had never once questioned his loyalty. Their marriage wasn't perfect, whose was? But it had its rituals. Saturday morning pancakes, crossword puzzles before bed, and long walks with their Labrador, Max. They were ordinary things, but sacred in their routine. That's why when the oddities started creeping in, they were hard to categorize. At first, it was small stuff. Tom forgot to pick up their daughter, Sophie, from her piano lesson. He always picked her up, never missed a day. He showed up 2 hours late, flustered and apologetic, insisting she never told him she needed a ride. Claire chalked it up to work stress. Exams were around the corner. Teachers got overwhelmed too. Then came the passwords. "Claire, did you change the Netflix password?" he asked one evening, frustration thick in his voice. "No, why? I couldn't log in. I tried 3 different ones." She brushed it off. They all mixed up passwords now and then. But days later, he forgot how to unlock his own phone. Claire started noticing other changes. Tom, normally precise with language, began stumbling over words. He once referred to the toaster as that hot box thing, then laughed it off, blaming a senior moment. He was only 46. What truly caught her attention was his phone behavior. Late at night, he'd step into the bathroom with his phone. The door would close. He'd be gone for 20-30 minutes. When Claire asked, he shrugged. "Just checking some articles. You know me, book nerd stuff." Except Claire did know him, and Tom hated reading on screens. Always had. Then one afternoon while folding laundry, Claire found a crumpled receipt in his jeans pocket. A dinner for 2, at a restaurant they'd never been to. A Thursday night, when he was supposedly at a staff meeting. Her heart thudded with betrayal. She didn't confront him right away. Instead, she watched, collected evidence like puzzle pieces. The missed appointments, the forgotten conversations, the subtle emotional withdrawal. One night, she caught him texting at 1 a.m., his face pale in the glow of the screen. "Who are you texting?" He blinked at her, startled. "Huh? Oh, just a friend. From college." "What friend?" Tom looked lost. "You wouldn't know him. You said him." "Who is it, Tom?" He fumbled for words. "It doesn't matter. It's nothing." That was when the panic settled in her bones. She'd seen friends go through infidelity, the heartbreak, the unraveling of trust. Was it happening to her? Was her husband, the man who once cried watching Sophie take her first steps, cheating? Claire cried silently that night, facing the wall while Tom snored behind her. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something was breaking, and she didn't know how to stop it. She started tracking his movements, something she never imagined doing. She installed a location-sharing app on his phone, under the guise of safety. She even checked his emails one afternoon while he was showering. But nothing concrete emerged. Still, her instinct screamed that something wasn't right. Then came the breaking point. Claire received a call from Sophie's school. Tom had gone to pick her up at noon, though she didn't finish until 3. He insisted it was time, argued with the receptionist, said it was Thursday schedule, even though it was clearly Tuesday. Claire rushed to the school. When she found him, he was sitting in the car, gripping the steering wheel, tears silently rolling down his cheeks. "I don't know what's happening to me," he whispered. She froze. Not because she was angry, but because, for the first time, she felt something worse than suspicion. Fear. Claire took Tom to their family doctor the very next morning. He resisted at first, insisting it was just fatigue, maybe burnout. But when she looked him in the eyes and said, "I'm scared, Tom," he finally agreed. Doctor Lal had known Tom for years. He laughed off the symptoms at first, too. "We all get a little foggy in our 40s, he said. tapping at his keyboard. But when Claire listed the behaviors one by one, missed appointments, forgotten names, strange word substitutions, mood swings, the doctor grew still. "I'd like to refer you to a neurologist," he finally said. "It's probably nothing. Could be stress or a thyroid issue. But let's rule out the bigger things." Claire's stomach churned at those words. The bigger things. The appointment with the neurologist wasn't for another 4 weeks. In that time, Tom's behavior became increasingly erratic. He put his car keys in the freezer. He left the front door wide open one night and claimed he'd locked it. He called Sophie by the wrong name twice. And once, while driving home, he pulled over and called Claire in tears, unable to remember how to get home from a grocery store they'd visited weekly for over a decade. Claire began to spend nights researching, Googling symptoms, joining online forums, reading about early-onset Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative conditions. One term kept coming up: young-onset dementia, a diagnosis for people under 65. It was rare, but not unheard of. She clung to hope that it wasn't that. Maybe it was a vitamin deficiency. Maybe it was depression. Maybe something curable. But her gut told her otherwise. The neurologist, Dr. Evans, was kind and methodical. She spent nearly 2 hours with Tom, running cognitive tests, checking reflexes, talking through his symptoms. Then came the MRI. A week later, they returned for the results. Claire held Tom's hand as Dr. Evans spoke gently but firmly. "There's been some shrinkage in the hippocampus," she said, pointing to the images on the screen. "It's not what we'd expect for someone your age." Tom furrowed his brow. "So what does that mean?" "It likely means you're experiencing early-onset Alzheimer's disease," Dr. Evans said softly. Claire felt the air get sucked out of the room. Tom blinked slowly. "Alzheimer's? Isn't that for old people?" "Typically, yes," the doctor nodded. "But around 5% of Alzheimer's cases are young onset. It often begins with language issues and memory disturbances. Exactly what you've been experiencing." Claire felt her hand trembling inside his. Is it reversible?" The doctor's pause said everything. "I'm afraid not," she said. "But we can slow the progression. There are medications, cognitive therapies, support systems. You're not alone in this." Tom was silent the entire ride home. No music, no small talk when they got inside. He went to the bedroom and lay on his side, facing the wall, just like Claire had done the night she suspected him of cheating. She stood in the doorway, numb. The guilt hit her like a tidal wave. How many nights had she imagined him with another woman? How many times had she snapped at him, accused him, doubted him? She sat beside him on the bed and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Tom." He looked at her, his eyes distant but filled with pain. "I thought I was losing my mind," he said. Claire wrapped her arms around him and held him as he cried. And just like that, suspicion turned into sorrow. Their lives had changed, not because of infidelity, but because of a disease that would steal more than memories. It would steal moments, conversations, pieces of the man she loved, but not her love. That, she vowed, would remain. Even if he one day forgot her name. After the diagnosis, time began to feel different. Not faster, not slower, just heavier. Tom had good days, days where he seemed like himself. Teasing Claire about her obsession with true crime shows, making breakfast with Sophie, quoting Shakespeare while walking Max. But the good days were becoming fewer. Claire quit her part-time job at the local bookstore. She told her manager it was a family thing. But the truth was, she needed to be home, to manage the medications, to schedule the appointments, to help Tom with even the simplest of tasks. One morning, Claire found him standing in the kitchen, looking at the coffee maker like it was a foreign object. "Do you want me to make it, honey?" she asked gently. He looked up. I know it's something I used to do. I just can't remember how. The decline wasn't linear. Some days he remembered birthdays and routines. Other days he forgot his own age or stared at the mail like he couldn't read it. Once, he got lost on a familiar walk and had to be found by a neighbor who recognized him. Sophie struggled in her own way. At 13, she couldn't process the shift in her father. He's right there, but he's not, she told Claire once. It's like Dad's in a fog and we can't reach him. Claire didn't have answers, only the growing ache of anticipatory grief, the pain of losing someone bit by bit while they're still breathing beside you. The hardest part was the moments of lucidity. When Tom knew exactly what was happening. One evening, Claire was folding laundry when Tom sat beside her on the bed. He held up one of Sophie's socks and studied it. "I'm scared," he said. Claire stopped folding. "I know." "No, Claire. I'm scared of forgetting you." She blinked back tears. "Then I'll remember for both of us." He chuckled, then grew serious again. "Will you stay? Even when I can't be who I was?" The question gutted her. How could he think she'd ever leave? "Tom," she whispered, cupping his face. "I'm not going anywhere. Not today. Not ever." He nodded, but his eyes betrayed the doubt, because he knew what was coming. The blankness, the confusion, the moments where even her face might feel unfamiliar. Still, they tried to keep pieces of normal. Family dinners, silly inside jokes, photo albums revisited on Sundays. Claire created a memory board, pictures from their wedding, family vacations, handwritten notes from Sophie, anything that might anchor him when he drifted. But the disease continued its quiet, ruthless work. One day, Tom forgot where the bathroom was. Another day, he panicked in the middle of the night, convinced their bedroom was a stranger's house. Claire found him standing in the hallway, disoriented, shaking, asking, "Where's Claire? Where's my wife?" "I'm right here," she said, placing his trembling hands in hers. "I'm right here, Tom." And sometimes, just for a flicker of a moment, he remembered, he'd squeeze her hand and whisper, "There you are." Those were the moments Claire lived for. But they became fewer and shorter, like sunlight in December. They started seeing a counselor who specialized in dementia support. Claire also joined a local support group for caregivers. There, she met people who were walking the same painful path, people who offered advice, comfort, and understanding without judgment. Still, nothing truly prepared her for the day he forgot Sophie's name. They were sitting in the living room watching an old Disney movie. Sophie turned to her father, laughing at a joke, and he looked at her like she was a neighbor kid. Claire watched her daughter's face crumble. She put her arm around her and said, "It's not you, sweetheart. It's the illness." Tom, noticing the tension, asked, "What did I do wrong?" Sophie didn't answer. She just left the room. Claire followed and held her daughter as she sobbed quietly in the hallway. "It's like he's fading," Sophie whispered. Claire nodded, tears slipping down her own cheeks. "He is, but we're still here. And as long as we are, we keep loving him. Even if he forgets, we remember." 6 months after the diagnosis, Claire woke to the sound of banging in the kitchen. She ran down the stairs and found Tom staring blankly at a shattered coffee mug on the floor. "I dropped it," he said, his voice flat. I was trying to make tea." Claire kneeled, carefully gathering the broken porcelain. "It's okay, love. Just a mug." But it wasn't just a mug. It was the slow erosion of independence. The occupational therapist had warned them. Tasks would become confusing, dangerous even. Claire child-proofed the house again. Only this time it wasn't for a toddler. It was for her husband. Labels went up on cabinet doors. They replaced the gas stove with an induction top. Locks on the medicine cabinet. GPS tracker on Tom's keychain. And still, there were close calls. Once, Tom wandered out in the rain without a coat, confused about where he was going. A kind mail carrier found him 4 blocks away, soaked and shivering, mumbling something about being late for school. That night, Claire cried in the shower, muffling the sound so Sophie wouldn't hear. But the cruelest part of Alzheimer's wasn't the wandering or the forgetfulness. It was watching the person you love forget themselves. Claire found Tom one morning, standing shirtless in front of the hallway mirror, frowning. "Who is that?" he asked. She froze. "That's you, Tom." He studied his reflection. "No, that's not me. I'm younger. My hair's not that gray." Her heart cracked. "You've just gotten wiser, that's all." He turned to her with pleading eyes. "Why can't I remember? What's happening to me? Claire, why does it feel like I'm disappearing?" She wrapped her arms around him, grounding him to the moment. "You're not disappearing. You're still here, with me." But even her embrace felt too small against the void growing in his mind. There were glimpses of the man she married, small, bright sparks in the fog point one evening, as she helped him into bed. He looked at her and said, "Claire, you have the kindest eyes." She blinked. "You remember my name?" He nodded slowly. "How could I forget the person who holds my world together?" She smiled through tears, brushing his graying hair back from his forehead. But by morning, he called her nurse. The lines were blurring between wife and caregiver, partner and stranger. Claire missed her husband, missed their quiet dinners and shared laughter over bad puns, missed his hands brushing hers as they read together in bed. Sometimes, in the dead of night, she'd curl up beside him and whisper old stories into his ear. The tale of their first road trip, the time he spilled coffee on her wedding dress minutes before the ceremony, the sound of Sophie's first laugh. She spoke these stories aloud not just for him, but for herself, to hold onto the man she loved before the disease took more of him. Support came in fragments. Friends brought meals. Neighbors helped with errands. Sophie's school counselor offered sessions to help her process the grief. But nothing filled the growing silence at home. The pauses between words that Tom couldn't finish, the forgotten jokes, the misnamed photographs point one afternoon. Sophie brought home an assignment. Write about the person who inspires you most. She handed the paper to Claire before submitting it. Claire's eyes welled up as she read the title. "My dad is still my hero, even if he forgets who I am." Claire hugged her daughter tightly. "He'd be so proud of you." Sophie looked up. "Do you think he knows?" Claire smiled sadly. "Maybe not always, but in his heart, yes. I believe he still knows love. The disease was ruthless, yes, but it hadn't won. Not yet, because in the face of forgetting, they had chosen to remember together to be why the time Tom turned 51. He barely spoke, words had become elusive, vanishing before they reached his lips. His movements were slower now, more hesitant. Dressing himself had become a struggle. Eating, too. Claire found herself feeding him like she had once fed Sophie as a toddler. Small bites, soft foods, slow patience. One morning, he reached for the spoon she was holding and missed entirely. His hand trembled, eyes confused. "It's okay," she whispered. "We'll try again." In some ways, she had lost him already. Not all at once, but piece by piece. A slow unraveling of the vibrant, witty man she married. And yet, love remained. It had morphed from romance to devotion. From candlelit dinners to quiet moments of care. From whispered promises to wordless touches. It was no longer about the life they planned, but the life they had, moment by fragile moment. Claire often wondered how many other families were living in this shadow. How many wives like her were brushing their husbands' teeth, wiping their tears, telling them you're safe 5, 6, 7 times a day. She started a blog, The Long Goodbye, chronicling their journey, their pain, and their moments of grace. To her surprise, readers came. From Canada, from Australia, from the UK, from every corner of America. Spouses, adult children, even former caregivers, each one echoing her heartbreak, offering kindness, sharing tips and stories and raw truth. They weren't alone. One spring afternoon, Claire took Tom to the local park. He loved the trees there, especially in April when everything turned green and full again. She wheeled him along the path, pausing under a blooming dogwood tree. The little boy ran past chasing a kite, his laughter piercing the air. Tom turned his head, his eyes tracking the sound. Then something flickered. He looked at Claire and, just for a heartbeat, his expression changed. Recognition. "Claire," he said, voice scratchy, barely audible. Her breath caught. "Yes, love, it's me." He smiled. And then, unbelievably, he added, "You're the reason I stayed this long." Claire broke, right there in the sunshine, holding his hand, tears streaming down her face. She knew the moment would vanish, like all the others. But it didn't matter. In that second, he was him again. She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. "I love you, Tom. Always." That evening, he slept peacefully. And the next morning, he didn't wake up. No struggle. No pain. Just stillness. Claire sat beside him for hours, holding his hand, remembering the man who had loved her fiercely and lived with courage, even when his mind betrayed him. Sophie placed a single daffodil on his chest. "He always said spring was his favorite," she whispered. The funeral was small and beautiful. Friends came from across the years. They shared stories. They laughed. They cried. Sophie read her school essay aloud. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. In the weeks that followed, the house felt too quiet. Claire sometimes reached for his toothbrush out of habit, or started to call out his name when she found an old photo tucked in a drawer. Grief came in waves, but so did grace. She continued her blog, now renamed Remembering Tom. Her final post went viral, shared by dementia awareness organizations across the English-speaking world. In it, she wrote, "Alzheimer's didn't steal Tom's soul, covered it, hid it, fractured it. But in the spaces between forgetting, love shined through. And in the end, love is the one thing this disease could never erase." Claire eventually returned to the bookstore. Not full-time, but just enough. She hosted a support group in the back room every second Wednesday. People came. They listened. They cried. They remembered. And Claire? She healed. Not all at once. Not completely, but enough. Enough to smile at Sophie's graduation. Enough to plant dogwoods in the backyard. Enough to laugh again. Enough to believe in the power of presence, even when memory fades. Because loving someone through Alzheimer's is not about holding on to who they were. It's about honoring who they are right now in this moment. And sometimes that is the purest kind of love there is.